Hello, Art One. So this is a very brief video tutorial in case you missed our classroom explanation at the beginning of this unit about industrial product design. So I'm going to walk through this Google slide quickly with you, and hopefully you'll get some information. And you, of course, when you begin every unit, are going to take a very brief show what you know that tells me where you are academically on the information in this unit. So before you watch this video, you should have already taken the show what you know that I believe is number 5 in our course here in Art 1 that you should have taken. And if you struggle to find it, let me know and I'll help connect you with that product or that quiz. So what is industrial design? You can read there quickly, but ultimately it is someone who designed products for everyday use. So everything you come in contact with, the seat in the car that you sit in, from the cell phone that you interact with, to the toaster you might toast your bread in, to the shoes you put on in the morning. Every single product that you come in contact with throughout your day has been touched by an industrial designer, someone whose sole job is to blend art, engineering, and mechanics together to create a product. That is an industrial designer. Every industrial designer who goes to school and can go to training for that, when they go and when they get a job, they participate in a 4-step design process. So it doesn't matter who you are, and if you're designing cars and automobiles for a living, or if you're designing toasters or cell phones, everyone goes through this 4-step process. And you, in your next unit, will be designing a product for everyday use. We'll talk about in a moment on this video, but you should know that you're going through a 4-step process. 1, analyze a problem and find the human need. 2, design and propose multiple solutions in 2 dimensions. So you're going to sketch out proposed ideas on a flat piece of paper with a pencil. And then you're going to take those multiple solutions and you're going to come up with the best solution from those designs and develop a 3-dimensional prototype. So you're actually going to make a sculpture of that product. And then when that product is built and completed, we'll have an implement and review product day where actually you and peers in your class will get to use the product and see how useful it is in that whole process. So the big idea is this: you are going to design 8 very small, we're talking no taller than about 1.5 inches, game pieces, and you're going to design 8 of them. 4 for the X's in a tic-tac-toe board and 4 for the O's. Now, you're not actually going to design X's and O's, but your job is to come up with a unified or a unique design of 2 different sides. I'm going to supply you actually with wood. I've already pre-cut some very nice pieces of 6x6 pine that you're going to use for your board. And you'll see an example in a photo here in a second. And your job is to develop 4 that would belong to the X side of the board and 4 that would belong to the O side without actually using X's or O's. So let's take an example of that. So here is an example who did rams, or sheep, you could say. They're rams, I think, but they did white rams and black rams. So you can see representing the 2 sides of the X's and the O's categories. And you'll notice that a wooden board represents the base of the tic-tac-toe board. So you're actually going to get a piece of wood that's almost identical to that you're going to get a chance to stain and then develop in something called paper clay. We'll actually be using it as a combination of sort of water-based flour and paper cellulose and a little bit of a few other products that creates this sort of temporary clay out of paper. And then you're going to build 8. You'll notice there's only 7 here, but you're going to build 8 game pieces representing the 2 sides. So let's go through the steps. Number 1, human need. Art 1 students need a day of simple entertainment before Thanksgiving break. So your goal is to build a game board that can be used for entertainment our day before Thanksgiving break. We're actually going to play games. You're going to actually product review someone's design. So your job is to make sure the product is playable, enjoyable, and can easily be moved around the board. And at the same time, it's freestanding so that the game pieces don't tip over and knocking all of the other game pieces off of your tic-tac-toe board. So you're going to be using aluminum foil, some fishing weights, and some of this paper clay to meet and to make all these products. So number 2, you now know your need. Number 1, that's your need. Number 2 is your design proposal. So you're going to develop 8 small tic-tac-toe pieces, 4 for each player, that are fully usable on a wooden game board with paper clay. So you're going to get a piece of paper from me that has a proposal form. So I'm going to open it up here on the screen. I'm not going to open it up on the screen. I'll make a link to it later, but I promise you it'll open up. And it has 2 boxes that you'll actually draw your proposal. 2 possible ideas that you could use as game pieces for your tic-tac-toe board. So you're going to sketch them out. You're going to make sure that they have some value on them or shading. And you want to, of course, make sure that you follow all the other guidelines. So let's click on the slide and you can see in just a second. So there's some industrial designers at work. You can see there they're building lunch boxes. That can be easily be made. And then, of course, you'll see in the top circle also some roller blades. Here is an industrial designer's preliminary sketches that worked on a wireless speaker. So you can see what they did was they tried to make these speakers that could be easy to pick up, move and transport and play at any moment. So let's say you were going to a basketball court or to a skateboard park and you wanted to have music that you could listen to while you're there. You could quickly set this down on the sidewalk and the music would play. So what are your design proposal requirements? So first of all, one of your 2 proposed little sketches, and little sketches, I mean about the size of a credit card. When you open the proposal form, you'll see them there. Your job is to design 2 possible game piece ideas. One of them must have full shading. One of them must have full shading on it so that you showed me you know how to shade objects. We've learned a little bit about that in class. You should make sure that your object shows different line weights. We've practiced that all the first 9 weeks, so that should be easy for you to do now. The game piece should fill each square on the worksheet. So you'll see the little rectangular square, and I'm going to ask you to make sure you draw large enough so that I can read them or see them, or anybody who looks at your sketches will understand what you're working on. And both designs must be highly readable, meaning that your designs are complete, they're understandable. Every part of your drawing explains exactly how that game piece is going to look. If someone cannot read, quote unquote, your design, then obviously it's going to be hard for them to understand your concept before you build it in 3D. And both design proposals should show at least 2 different textures, meaning that if you think about the surface of something, there's an implied or an actual touch to something. So smooth is actually a texture, but so of course is other things like bumpy or furry or jagged. Those are all textural. So your job is to show at least 2 different textures. Smooth counts as your first one, obviously. So here's another prototype design. Here's somebody else's paper clay. They chose to work with owls. And you'll notice that the owls are different color, representing the X and the O side of tic-tac-toe. Your job is you're going to be handed a small amount of paper clay. You're going to be handed some aluminum foil. That aluminum foil is for you to build an armature, or basically a skeletal system. So inside each one of these owls is a little tiny wad of aluminum foil and a fishing weight, so that it guarantees that the owl, when you set it down on top of the tic-tac-toe board, does not tip over. Because the only thing more annoying is when you set it down and it tips over, only to knock over everyone else's game pieces and no one remembers where they were playing. So it's very important that your game pieces be highly usable, that they're weighted properly, and that they have at least 2 different textures. So you'll notice the feathers, the little indentations on the wings and on the body to suggest a texture. And in fact, this person went overboard and then also did another texture inside the actual eyeballs of the owl. So these are the vocabulary words. I've already touched upon a couple of them, but these are all vocabs you should know for this unit. An armature, which is a hidden base or foundation of any 3D sculpture. It's usually not what you see inside of it. So sometimes an armature actually gets removed before the sculpture gets on display. Sometimes the armature just becomes part of it. In your case, because you're using aluminum foil, it'll actually just live inside of your structure as part of it when it's done, because you're going to then encase it in paper clay. And of course, you're going to have a fishing weight inside of that piece so that it stands straight up. Subtractive sculpture is nothing more than when you remove things, you remove away. So think of maybe like someone who works in marble or stone and they chisel away. If you think about the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., that was done by stonemasons, where they actually took a chisel and chiseled away and removed. So they did subtractive sculpture. They had a large piece of marble and they removed pieces away to get Lincoln's face to look like it does. That would be an example of subtractive. Additive is just what it sounds like. It's when you literally take and continue to add product clay, stone, wood to a sculpture to build up layers so that you achieve whatever three-dimensional object you want. And of course, you can do both in any assignment. In your assignment, the assumption is you should use both. Additive obviously is assumed because you're going to put paper clay on top of aluminum foil armature, but you might also do some subtractive. Texture, which means the real or implied feeling of a surface. Unity, when all parts of a design work together. It's when you consider all the elements and principles of design. Did you think about the colors and how the colors will match and go together? Did you think about the textures and how they relate to whatever you decided to use as your tic-tac-toe game pieces? When everything comes together and looks like it's been unified, it works as a team, then it all makes sense. Sort of think of it like getting dressed for a fancy occasion. Your parents send you upstairs to get dressed. They want you to be unified. They don't want you to wear mismatched socks or mismatched colors clothing. They want you actually to see that all the parts of your outfit come together as a team. Industrial design, which is actually, we talked about at the beginning of this slide presentation, which is someone who spends their day designing products for everyday functions or use. So shoes, phones, automobiles, toasters, sporting equipment, you name it, you could major in industrial design and focus in one of those areas and start building products for the future that people will actually physically come in contact with. So last two slides, how am I going to be graded? So here is a list of things. We're going to go over them more in class, but you can see all of the 7 things that you will be expected to show in your final work. Texture and form, is it three-dimensional? Did you show at least 2 textures in your design? Is your design purposeful? In other words, it's easy to use and it has purpose and it isn't just random thoughts. It's purposeful and it will be effective as a tic-tac-toe game piece. Craftsmanship, obviously your neatness and your overall consideration to the design. How well did you try to smooth the clay out where it needed to be? How well did you show the texture? Was it clear what the object was? You can kind of figure out from there. Color application. Eventually, we'll be painting them with acrylic paint, and you're going to be expected to show high skill level based on what you've chosen as your design. Your colors are neat. They're well mixed if they need to be mixed. They're well applied. There aren't big open spots. The paint isn't dripping off of there. Common sense stuff. Use of medias. How well did you show all your use of all the things? So the aluminum foil, the fishing weight, the paper clay, the paint, the wood that we have that you're going to use for your tic-tac-toe board. All these products, these medias that you're going to come in contact with, how well did you use them? How smart were you in your planning? And did you understand how all of them come together to make one total package of an idea? Growth as artists. When you started out and drew your proposal form, from the minute you started the proposal until you completed the assignment, did you show growth? So when we see the proposal, you might have started out and some of your ideas might have been really simple, or maybe they weren't completely finished as an idea. But as you went on and you finished the product and you finished your tic-tac-toe board, did you show growth? Did you try to problem solve? Did you figure out where things didn't go right and you figured out how to solve them however they needed to be? Did you actually show that you could build an armature? You could build weighted parts? Could you build a product that was usable for everyday use? And finally, structure and stability. As we said before, we want them to be weighted with fishing lures, fishing weights, so that when you set them down on the tic-tac-toe board, they don't tip over and they're not going to cause a problem when playing tic-tac-toe, obviously. So the last slide is what we're going to do in step 4, implement and product review. The day before Thanksgiving, after they're all graded and everyone's finished and gotten photos of their work, much like the photos that were taken here by students, you're going to have a chance to play tic-tac-toe with your peers with your product. And they're going to review your game. They're going to, how well do the pieces work? How easy are they to pick up? How easy are they to sit down and they don't tip over? How good sized are they so that they fit inside of the square of the tic-tac-toe board? All of those things are important to review your product. So someone else in your class will review your product and give you feedback. So hopefully that gives you some insight to the assignment. I'm looking forward to your creative responses, and we'll actually get lots of time in class to work on this. And as always, if you have any questions, you should first consult Schoology and then come see me, and I'm happy to help solve your problems.